This is Ring of Honor star Shane Taylor, and you're listening to the Pro Wrestling Post podcast.
You're listening to the Pro Wrestling Post podcast with your host, Mark Madison. This episode's guest is Shane Taylor. Visit ProWrestlingPost.com for interviews, blogs, and upcoming events in your area. You can also find the podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Anchor, or whatever podcast app you prefer. And now here's your host, Mark Madison.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a new edition with our latest edition of the podcast. Thank you, everybody. Welcome again, Mr. Shane Taylor. Thank you again for your time and your energy.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Shane, so this is actually the second time we've actually had a chance to speak. I think the last time we spoke was a couple of years ago, and this was, you had been venturing, developing your own journey. You were with the Rebellion, post Keith Lee, teaming with him. A lot has changed, I would say, even 6 months, but imagine like since 2017, maybe you could get us up to speed, everything that's kind of transpired, Shane Taylor Productions, everything.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's promotions, by the way.
Oh, promotions.
Since 2017, I've sort of had a chip on my shoulder, and people that know me best know it really doesn't take much to do that, but a motivated and upset Shane Taylor is the last person that you really want to deal with. And so I took the momentum from 2017, carried it with me into becoming one of the biggest breakout stars that Ring of Honor has had in the last decade. Not only with my matches with Jeff Cobb stealing the shows, but my matches with Bandito, my matches with Joe Hendry, and I've been able to, since then, of course, win the Ring of Honor World Television Championship, becoming only the third African-American male in the history of the company to do so. That meant a lot to me, and to have one of the most memorable runs in recent history with that championship was my goal. And for me, it's now coming off of successful overseas tours in the UK, Mexico. Now, it's full speed ahead with 2020, being at the helm of Shane Taylor Promotions, myself, Ron Hunt, Khan and Moses, Sons of Savagery. We are looking to shatter the glass ceiling even more, not just in ROH, but around the wrestling world. I now have, negotiated the best deals in the history of ROH, securing myself the largest per fight deal in the company's history, and also guaranteed world championship shot of my choosing, as well as the guaranteed six-man championship shot when and where I say. So to start the year off with 2 championship opportunities secured is a hell of a start, and we are going to have a lot of fun this year.
That's amazing. One of the most important things to have shared, and it's great that we actually have your time and you're taking the time to talk to us about this, is being only the third African-American to win the title in a month where we want to really, it shouldn't be 1 month, and I think that's been the constant discussion, is that celebrating cultures of every kind all the time should be prominent. Where do you think, do you still feel like at some point, is color a boundary? Like, some have felt that it is, some have argued that it isn't. Is it about opportunity? What's your take on, there's a lot of discussion about it, but you can speak to that, I can't. So I'm not even going to pretend to.
Well, I mean, you can, and it's everyone's opinion or their belief, which is why these conversations get so heated and are so in depth, because you're arguing belief, right? Mm-hmm. And so for me, I look around the wrestling landscape, and it still very much is an issue. And the one thing that I hate is when one person gets success and people go, oh, well, see, it's over because they were successful. Like, no, that doesn't mean it's over, right? Mm-hmm. Just like people say, well, racism is over because we had a black president. No, it's not. No, it's not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, you can look around and in recent memory now, you've got champions from other promotions now, using slurs, and you've got, you have companies now that when you look at their expansion or anything that they're doing, they have no, black people on the roster whatsoever. You know what I mean? You have companies who can continue to use black talent in stereotypical roles because that's what's comfortable for those in charge, and for a lot of the masses, when they look at black culture, this is what they see and this is what they're accustomed to. So in professional wrestling, a lot of people are nervous about deviating from that formula because they know this is something that people will accept and that they'll buy into. That doesn't make it the right thing, And for me, and so many people like myself, our goal is to show that we can be everything. We can be, the baby faces who overcome all the obstacles. We can be, everything on the spectrum that our counterparts can be. We don't just have to be pimps or thugs or variations of the same dancing characters. We can be so much more than that. We can rely on more than just athleticism to be special. We have intellect. We have ability. We have so many things going for us more than just what we've been allowed to show so far. So that's been my issue, and that's been the fight that we've had, and that's kind of why I say things like, I'm here to shatter that glass ceiling. That that people think that just because we've had a few champions or because a few people are successful with mid-card things that things have gotten that things changed somehow, and that's just not the case. The same ideology still exists. I don't care what new faces you put on them. The same obstacles are still there, and it is on people like myself and other people taking up that fight to break those doors down and to continue to do what we have set out to do, and that's set the example.
Now, a lot of your drive is also innate, and I think that goes, and you please correct me if I'm wrong, but your success is innate. You came from a background where things weren't okay, and you made a better life for yourself. So where is the line between race and individual drive to supersede whatever has been created? You know what I mean?
And that's a tough question, but everybody's different. You know what I mean? Like, there's only one LeBron James. There's only one, Bill Gates. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I am someone who did overcome a lot of those things, but I was very fortunate still because of the people that I had around me. You know what I mean? And at different points in my life, that could have gone way left, right? And we could not even be having this conversation. But I was fortunate enough to have the right people by me at the right times to steer me where I needed to go. And for so many people, they don't have that. So it's very difficult to say, well, you made it, so why is it not the same for everyone else? Because not everybody else is in the same situation. A lot of people have it way worse. And it's unfortunate that we still live in a time where it seems like things are only getting harder. We have more technology than ever. Things are moving faster than ever, yet that gap is still growing. We live in a day and time where you can spend billions on bombs or spend billions going to war, yet cities in our own country don't have clean water. That makes no sense to me.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I'm saying? And you can't explain to me, and you can't argue to me the point if that was a different city. Say that was Boston, or say that was, some rural suburb, that this would have been allowed to have continued on for this long. Right? Someone would have solved this. Someone would have made it a priority to take care of it. Yet here we are X amount of years later, and this is still the same thing. You know what I mean? The water is poisonous. People are losing their jobs because they can't, they're still trying to somehow provide for their family, yet they don't have clean water. And it shouldn't be up to celebrities to bring clean water to anybody. Like, that's why we have, city officials. That's why we have politicians. That's why we put these people in office, take care of these. But when you don't value a certain community, when you don't see them as being human, when you don't see them as being people, you allow these things to happen, and that's something that we've got to change.
Are you looking for the newest and hottest in the world of pro wrestling? Then check out the amazing action on Powerslam.tv, the biggest indie pro wrestling channel in the world. Get over 6,000 hours of the best events from over 150 of your favorite promotions from 20 different countries around the globe. Brands like Progress Wrestling, Evolve Wrestling, Combat Zone, Defy, PCW Ultra, PWX, Over the Top, Shine, and hundreds of others with fresh content added every day for only $5.99 per month. Get your free trial today at Powerslam.tv.
I'm sure you've probably shared this conversation with your contemporaries, even within Ring of Honor, even outside of Ring of Honor. And because it's more of a pointed conversation, more within recent months, with certainly social media being a buzz about it, do you feel that in some respects people were just kind of sweeping it under the blanket, not giving it as much notoriety and focus as it should be? Or were people taking the wrong approach and blaming everyone? Or is there a way in which to approach it where you could still be professional and still yet want to change the way things are done?
Well, of course, but there has never been any sort of change in this country or anywhere else that was comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And so, in order to change things, people are going to have to be uncomfortable. Things are going to have to be rough because that's where the growth is. That's where the progress is. There is no protest. There is no change that is ever come lightly. So people can be professional, but again, if we want things to change, that means that people are going to have to see things differently, and no one has ever relinquished that power willingly. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
it's something that is going to change. It's something that's going to come to a head at some point. And people can find themselves on the right side or wrong side of history. It really depends on where they want to see themselves, where they want their legacies to be, what they want to be remembered as, And for me and so many others, we want to be on the right side of history. We want to be on the right side of change, and not just for one group, but for everybody. You know what I mean? And that's what I've said on many other interviews before. It seems like racism is the one thing that people go, oh, just get over it. But they don't say that about anything else. They don't say that about any sort of misconduct. They don't say that about any other phobia. Nothing. It's only this. And for me, if we're not getting rid of everything, then none of it means anything, right? Then you again picking and choosing who's allowed to be trampled on and who's allowed to be stepped on, and that's not okay with me. So either we're stopping everything, or we might as well just all be quiet about the rest of it because it means nothing.
So Ring of Honor has celebrated African American athletes for ever since I can remember. I mean, almost since its inception. Where do you feel that they've taken steps to ensure that there is a more prominent position? And the World Championship is something of value, not something to be understated. Jay Lethal's time as champion as one. Your time as a television champion, his time as a television champion. Where do you see that foregoing? What are the conversations like within administration?
Well, I can't speak to, how they talk because I'm not around when they do. But I know, looking from the outside in, it is one of the few companies who've had people like myself in prominent roles and allowed them to just be themselves. No stereotype, no glad handing, none of the same things that you see in a lot of other places.
Mm-hmm.
And for myself to have an example like a guy like Jay, to be one of the very best who have ever done this, and to be the only one who held that mantle, but still only one of 8 people in the history of the sport to have reached that level on an international platform like Ring of Honor. So I know the folks in charge love Jay. They're happy with his success. We're happy with this success, and I've taken the challenge upon myself to sort of have him scoot over in that legacy, because I want my name added to that list as well. I want to be the 9th person in the history of this sport to lead a company, and my hope is that I can lead it with the grace and with the skill and the mastery that Jay did. But the goal, nonetheless, is to lead it and lead it well.
Are you looking for the newest and hottest in the world of pro wrestling? Then check out the amazing action on powerslam.tv, the biggest indie pro wrestling channel in the world. Get over 6,000 hours of the best events from over 150 of your favorite promotions from 20 different countries around the globe. Brands like Progress Wrestling, Evolve Wrestling, Combat Zone, Defy, PCW Ultra, PWX, Over the Top, Shine, and hundreds of others with fresh content added every day for only $5.99 per month. Get your free trial today at powerslam.tv.
While we want to look ahead, who would Shane Taylor, if he could say that the one particular athlete, for all that he achieved, we could, regardless of culture, was somebody that you tried to pattern yourself after, to lead with grace, to lead with dignity, to lead with confidence, to show true leadership as a child, that you can look back and say, I'm hoping I'm making this person's memory proud?
For me, I've always looked at guys like Ali to be able to be in the prime of their careers and yet set aside all of that, all of the money, all of the fame, all of the accolades to lead their communities, to lead their people, and do so unapologetically, to not cave into pressure. And what strikes me now as sort of funny is that people love to romanticize history, right? And people forget that in Ali's prime, people hated Ali. He was a draft dodger. He was this, and that. He was every name in the book but the one that he was birthed as. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He was, he had death threats. People threatened his family, and it's the same thing with guys like Dr. King. People hated Dr. King in his prime as well. They bricks at him, sick dogs on him, water hoses, the whole nine. They jailed him. He was labeled a terrorist. All kind of things. People forget. Now when people, and this is like I said, when you're on the right side of history now, people can look back and go, oh, they were right. And now there's nothing but, praises be to Ali and Dr. King, but the same people that are praising them now hated them 50 years ago. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so for me, it's about having that unwavering spirit and going, I am right, and I know I'm right, and I'm going to weather any storm that comes my way because I'm going to be on the right side of history. And doing this is far bigger than myself. It's far bigger than championships. It's far bigger than even legacies. This is about what we can do for generations going forward and giving them an equal platform to be seen as legitimate stars, not only stars if they agreed to play into certain roles, but simply just be themselves, simply go out there and be athletes and, carry the torch the right way and represent for themselves and their culture and their communities the right way.
So where is the line between accepting very stereotypical, traditional characters that African Americans in wrestling have had to play and be seen as more, and it being something that's tied to your job, and you supersede that, wait a minute, I don't need this job that badly? Where does that vary from individual to individual? Is one considered selling out? I hate to say that term because it's not really fair, because you've got a family to feed, and do you make compromises? Maybe that's a way to put it. What's your take on it? Because you've crafted a character that's very organic in its nature, and it's true to who you are, and you've had the freedom. Now, could that vary from company to company? Is that individual to individual? Because even on the independent circuit, I think there's a little more freedom. I would believe. I can't speak to that. What's your perspective on that?
Yeah, it does vary from company to company, but also individual to individual. I'll never knock anybody for the way they choose to feed their family. What they choose to do is all up to them entirely. But it's they know when they look in the mirror what they did.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know if you have allowed yourself to influence a generation after you into doing the same cycles of destructive behavior that you were taught.
Right.
You know if you've done that, right? And when you look at a lot of hip hop and things like that, this is where you find those things, right? You see people promoting things and glorifying things that are only the most destructive aspects of our culture. Yet you won't find people talking about, the leaders, the inventors, the doctors, the lawyers, the people who make positive change. That is very rarely talked about in media, right? Because that's not where the money is.
No, sadly.
That's not where the sensationalism is. That's not where the stories are, People love to talk about the negative, and that gets pushed on society. That's why people think the way they do about our culture. Because this is all they know. This is all they hear. This is all the stories that they're told, right? And you have generation after generation looking to you thinking that, okay, the only way that I can be successful is by doing these things. That's where the issue is, because you can be successful not doing those things. And when it comes to what companies expect, if you present them with an individual idea and they turn that down and go, no, we need you to be this, you now have a choice to make.
Yeah.
Either you don't do it and stand on your principle and possibly lose that job because they just feel like, okay, well, we'll find somebody else who will do this, and there will be, you know what I mean? Then you're forced to, okay, do I have to do this now to feed my family, right? And so this is the choice that people have. You either give in to it, or you hope that your belief in yourself manifests into something successful, and for me, it manifested into something successful, so I'm able to stand on my laurels and stand by my faith and stand by my belief in who I am and what I won't, and that's just me. But there are more than myself who are doing the very same things, and are fighting to make sure that we'll have a choice, right? That it's not something that you're forced into doing because this is what our audience likes to see, or this is what's comfortable for us to believe you are. And for me, that's where it's got to change. We can show people and teach people that we can be more than that. We are more than that, and we get to showcase more than that. That's what Shane Taylor Promotions is all about.
A person you still call a friend, and I'm sure even if you don't talk to them every day, and we've talked about them before, and you haven't hidden it, Keith Lee, NXT North American Champion, did it. There is no deviation in who he is, true athlete, and he's celebrated, and WWE audiences are loving him, and that's a perfect example of somebody much like yourself that has helped to craft his own niche and be himself and is valued for the athlete that he is.
100%.
Yeah. Have you had these types of conversations with him too, and how things have?
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course, and I won't speak to what we talked about.
Of course,
that's his thing to say when he's ready to say it, and choose a platform for him to. But everything you just said is 100% spot on. And we want, and guys like myself, guys like Keith, we just want that opportunity for everyone, right? To be able to go, hey, you don't have to fit this stereotypical role. You don't have to just sing and dance. You don't have to be a criminal. You don't have to be a pimp. You don't have to be a thug. You don't have to be, the super black dude from the street. You can be an athlete. You can be entertaining. You can be charismatic. You can be the hero. You can be the villain. You can be anything you want to be, and you can be unique. You don't have to do this, right? And it's just creating a sport and creating a world where everyone feels like they can do that, and no one feels like they are pigeonholed into being a certain role simply because this is what people expect out of you.
One of the things that is going to be happening, it's an independent show, and I'm sure you're familiar with it too, as a trend that was circulating for the culture. It's more than just a hashtag, and yet, unfortunately, in some regards, some just approached it like that. But at the same time, there is this celebration, and the concept itself is wonderful that it's tied to an event. Do you see something like that being something a major promotion would want to make a focal point? Much like, I think there's that slippery slope. So, like, how do you not have it so that it's tokenized, like it's one thing, and yet make it something more prominent? Whereas, and I don't want to make the comparison, but unfortunately, this is kind of the only thing. When they had the all women's pay-per-view, like I don't. It almost feels like it's a tokenism approach, and that it should be celebrated all the time. So You know what I mean? So like, if you ran a show, how do you change the idea? Is it? I'm stumbling over the question because I want to frame it. And I don't want to.
But I know what you're getting at, and this is my hope for it. It is a wonderful idea, and I hope everyone involved is successful. What I want to see happen, though, is it become more than just an event to garner street cred for some. If that's what they're doing, I want this to be something where every athlete on that show can be a star going forward. I want them to take the momentum that they take from this, and it spur other people to see that, to see the talent that we have. But at the same time, I don't want it to be something that is a one-off, because when you look at different things that are going on, like I saw, a lot of posters for Japan that they were doing. I didn't see anybody that was for the culture on those shows, right?
Right.
And things. So my thing is, if you're going to be for the culture, then be for it all the time. Not just when it suits you, not just when you can make money off of it. I want to see the same representation everywhere you're going with your brand. So if you're going to Japan, we should be with you. If you're going to the UK, we should be with you. If you're going to Mexico, we should be with you. Not just, when you feel like you're in a city that you can capitalize off of us being there. That's my only concern, right? I wish everybody in that event nothing but success. I want them all to be, I want it to be a fantastic event. I hope no one is taking me the wrong way. I'm simply saying, if you're going to say something that's for the culture, and you're going to step out on that branch, and you're going to say this is what you're about, it shouldn't just be when it suits you. It shouldn't just be when you feel like it's appropriate. It should be all the time.
Thank you so much for listening to the Pro Wrestling Post podcast with your host, Mark Madison. Once again, please visit ProWrestlingPost.com for interviews, blogs, and upcoming events in your area. And be sure to download the podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Anchor, or whatever podcast app you prefer.